afternoon, Lisa.
Good afternoon, Andrew.
Doctor Who.
Yes.
The War Machines.
Yes.
Episode 2.
Ting! It's really stupid, that
Opening
ting.
titles are slightly different to
Yes.
what they were for episode 1.
They are.
Because it doesn't say The War Machines this time.
It sort of slides up.
And the
doesn't it?
2's got some dots against it.
It has.
Yeah,
Yes.
so
Yes.
it was just slightly different. But in terms of production, there's a lot happening with Doctor Who this week.
All right, okay.
So let's just do the bits and bobs. So the Hartnell Handbook tells us that the War Machines episode 2 is recorded in Riverside 1 on Friday the 17th of June 1966. The budget is £2,575. The total cost is £2,355. So it's slightly under budget.
Yeah.
So that's the Friday. On the Sunday, the 19th, 5 days location shooting for The Smugglers begins in Cornwall.
All right, gosh, okay.
And the regular cast are only needed for the first day. They then return to London to continue work on the War Machines.
Okay.
Monday the 20th, Innes Lloyd sends Jackie Lane a letter following her departure from the series. I'd like to thank you for all the hard work that you have put in since you've been playing Dodo. I'm very sorry that because of the background, etc., you were a victim of circumstance. Anyway, let's hope that your time with us has not been wasted, and that from it you may receive a tempting offer.
Didn't.
Should you want to... No, I know. Should you want any photographs or anything, please do not hesitate to contact us. Do come in and see us when you can. And her actual reply is quite polite,
Yes,
considering.
it's very gracious.
Yeah,
Yes,
considering
it's very
that I'd have been a bit
gracious.
more peed off than
Yes.
that. But
Yes.
no, she does write a nice letter back.
Yes. Thank you for
Thursday the
that.
23rd. We've not finished yet.
Okay.
Michael Craze and Annika Wills are presented to the press at a photo call beginning at 2:30 p.m. in Television Centre. So basically, as soon as Dodo's out the door,
They're in.
they start advertising Michael and Annika. So yeah. But in terms of transmission, it's Saturday the 2nd of July at 6:55. The Doctor discovers the computer's secret. He doesn't really.
No.
But
Not
will
quite.
it be in time to save Dodo? Definitely not,
No.
considering what's happened in June. And there's a Western, Ramrod.
Okay.
Have you ever seen Ramrod?
I've never seen
Have you seen
Ramrod.
anything resembling a Ramrod?
No.
You're not going to say, are you?
No.
Not only, but also again, and the Troubleshooters, produced by Peter Graham Scott and directed by Terence Dudley.
Okay.
A bomb explodes as Stuart arrives at Saigon airport. Soon he becomes heavily involved in the conflicts of a warring people. That's Robert Hardy and chums.
Yes.
The News, Arrest and Trial, a film series, and The Weather, and then Close Down. But for episode 2, we watched the piece about on the DVD about
it being put back
the
together.
recovery of
Yes.
it and the sort of joining of all the bits. Because the War Machines is very much a patchwork sort of release, isn't it?
Yes.
Taken from lots of sources. Now, I know you didn't... Did you have the first Peter Haining book, A Celebration?
Yes.
You did?
Not a celebrate. Yes.
Right, the one with the balloons and the TARDIS
Yes,
on the front.
I did.
Because that's the one that had the list of episodes in
that
1983.
existed. Yes, wasn't a lot.
And in 1983, episode 2 of The War Machines existed from an Australian copy, but the rest of it didn't. And the rest of it turned up later. Well, most of the rest of it turned up in Nigeria. Yeah, there were still bits missing even in those copies. So the fact that on the DVD, episode 2 is mostly the is mostly the Nigerian print, which is higher quality, but incomplete, and the bits that are missing are sourced from the Australian print, which is of lower quality. So that's quite interesting. But yeah, 4.7 million people watched this episode, which isn't great, because people have been going, oh, the ratings are falling, falling.
Yes. And bearing in mind then, Doctor Who was getting sort of 6, 7, 8 million.
Yeah, I mean...
10 million.
I think the highlight for season 3 is sort of Galaxy Fall, because there's one episode that gets 10 or 11 million. I'm not entirely sure, but
And
by
nowadays, it's changed. People watch stuff afterwards.
But yeah, people always go on about the gunfighters as getting low ratings, and frankly, the War Machines gets worse.
Yeah.
But nobody seems to mind that. But
Machines, isn't it?
so we cut to like Wotan's sort of room, and everybody's plotting, aren't they?
Yes.
And London shall be the first capital to be taken over. Funny that. Then Washington.
Yes.
Then Moscow.
Yes.
So they're planning ahead, it has to be said.
Yes.
And you get all this stuff that Doctor Who is required. Now, do you object to the fact that he's called Doctor Who in this episode?
No, because I think Wotan's just got confused, doesn't he?
I think it's interesting that as a kid,
it wouldn't probably bother
it
you
would
as a
be
kid.
entirely right, because as a kid you think he's called Doctor Who. As you become more of a fan, you start to dig your heels in and go, no, he's not called Doctor Who, he's called the Doctor, and I know that because I'm a fan, and stupid people call him Doctor Who. Then I think as you become even more of a fan, you say, yes, he is called Doctor Who, because that's what it says on the end credits. And I was because we're into sort of Doctor Who on Twitch at the moment, and I remember saying to you that the Pertwee era, some of the time he's called DR Who, and some of the time he's called Doctor Who in full. And we have this thing that up until the end of part 4 of Logopolis, the end credits say he's called Doctor Who. So Peter Davison plays Doctor Who in Logopolis, but he plays the Doctor in Castrovalva.
Yes, and it's much the same for when Doctor Who came back in 2005. Christopher Eccleston is credited as Doctor Who. David Tennant wanted to be credited as the Doctor
because he's of the fan era that insists he's not called Doctor Who.
And Peter Capaldi says he's Doctor Who.
It's because he's an older type of fan.
Yeah.
And I think it's very interesting that when you come to the series as a fan, determines whether you think he's called Doctor Who or not.
And does it really matter?
It doesn't really matter.
Doesn't really matter at all.
But I'm very much of the thing that whatever the end credits say is what the character is called that week. Yeah. And again, you've got various production teams, and whatever the production team of the time says, that's what goes. Yeah. And Ian Stewart Black says that Jerry Davis didn't correct me.
No.
But then
it must be right.
But then, to be honest, Jerry Davis was fairly new to the job anyway, and probably didn't care about silly things like that. But yeah. Anyway, they're going to make a computer program to operate the war machines.
Yes.
And blimey, that must be a complicated computer program to deal with every situation it could deal
possibly
with.
Yeah.
So we are talking serious technology here for 1966.
Yes. A lot of programming. Yeah, because as you say, it's got to have...
It's got to be able to deal with any situation. Yeah. And that computer program, even now, is impossible to write. Because when you build a robot, you have to define the circumstances under which it can work. So if you have a robot that builds cars, that's what it can do. If you have a robot, you're starting to get them now where they interact with people. Because you had the one on Tomorrow's World the other week, that was incredibly slow in replying.
Yes, because it had to sort of work out what it was going to say. Yeah. And then once it started, it wouldn't stop.
It wouldn't
they couldn't turn it off.
Would it? No.
No. Can we turn this off?
No.
We can't turn it off. Can we turn the volume down?
But even then, that conversational computer is basically looking up what it says on Wikipedia, doesn't it? It's not having its own thoughts. No. It's looking up to other sources of information. Yeah. And although we, when we do these things, we are aware that Wikipedia is not the best source for truth.
No.
BBC Genome and production paperwork are still better places to go in a lot of situations.
Yeah. But this episode does that a lot, because suddenly, because you go a bit further into the episode, and suddenly there's a lot of people working on the war machines.
Yeah.
Where did they come from?
Yeah, well...
There's boxes.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that, yeah. But Hartnell's lurking around the inferno, and they say about calling the police. And is it Kitty?
Kitty, yeah.
She doesn't want the police involved.
No.
One wonders why.
Yes. I've got my licence to think about.
Yeah. Are the police going to find a load of other stuff?
Yes.
That's going on behind the scenes with all these under 20s. Yeah, right.
Perhaps it's a swingers club.
Dear. I like the way that Polly is very practical here.
Yes.
And she says about calling the hospitals and things like that. And yeah, I think even here you start to see how good Annika Wills is as Polly, and indeed Ben as well.
Michael Craze, yeah.
Because it's very clear that Jackie Lane is being eased out at this point, isn't it? Unfortunately,
yes.
And it is entirely due to the change of production team.
Yeah.
And that's all it is really. But
they don't want the previous production team's companion.
She does get a bit of a raw deal in episode 2,
and she's never actually. The character of Dodo is.
I think she's at her best in the Gunfighters.
Yes, I was just going to say the best story is the Gunfighters, and quite frankly, she's quite annoying for some of that.
Yeah, but she.
But she's given something decent to do.
Yeah, she actually does stuff in the Gunfighters. Yeah,
she's never really given that clear an idea of what to do, what accent to use, and how to play the part. So,
but she turns up with a sort of rather rubbish cover story about what she's been up to.
Yeah.
And then we get the cab in the studio. So it's rare to see vehicles actually in the videotape studio at this point in Doctor Who. Well, at any point in Doctor Who, really. But there's some sinister sorts lurking by a phone booth.
Yes. With chloroform.
Yeah, and then one of my favourite characters from this episode, the tramp.
Yes. From a gentleman of the road, he is.
Yeah, with a proper sort of wispy beard, and I do like him. He's asking for change of £1, isn't he? And I like the thing that he's going to give £1 to the taxi driver who hasn't got change. Oh no, not another one, he says. And then he's going to go off and get some change.
And never come back.
But Polly, luckily, has change. And was it in the script? He's a bit annoyed by that. Yeah. It's not really obvious on screen. No. But Polly wants to have lunch with Ben tomorrow. Oh yeah. So up the post office tower at the revolving restaurant, we presume, which I didn't realise was operated by Butlins.
All right.
That's what it said on the notes. Yeah. But Ben insists he's no Deb's Delight.
Deb's Delight. Yes.
That's an old-fashioned phrase, isn't it? 'Cause, do you want to explain about debutantes?
Debutantes are
ladies,
young ladies of
a certain class.
A certain class, and of a sort of around, I would imagine, 16 to 18 years old. And they
go into
society basically to find a husband and get married. Yeah. And be presented. They used to be presented to the monarch. I think by this point, this was long ago, stopped. But you'd be presented to the monarch and launched into society.
But is it fair to say that they wouldn't mind a bit of rough as well?
Possibly.
I don't wish to refer to Ben as a bit of rough.
Possibly, but I don't know. Having never been in that situation, I can't tell.
You're not a Deb.
No.
All right. But we cut briefly to Ealing on film, where they're making the war machines. Yes. And as you've pointed out, what's the time scale for this? Because 5 minutes ago, they were having a discussion about what to do, and now they've got a load of boxes with W stenciled on them. So who's done all this?
I don't know. And where did all the workers come from?
Yeah.
And how have they got them there? And how have they hypnotised
How has it been organised? The time scale is bonkers.
It should be the next day by this point.
And I've said this has all been arranged very quickly between scenes, basically. Yeah. But it's taken them about an hour at most to sort all this out.
Major Green's been in the back room stenciling all these cases with a W.
Yeah, but in fact, all the boxes have to have W on them. If you haven't got a W on them, the box isn't allowed in. But this bit about Brett does that weird thing about he must be destroyed.
Yes.
And that science fiction thing about sort of overacting
it
at that point.
Yeah, it goes up at the end of the sentence.
But yeah, the tramp sort of goes into the
to the warehouse to have a kip.
Yeah, you can see some familiar electronic props, like from the Space Museum and various sort of electronic banks that you see all over the shop in 60s.
And we'll continue
Doctor
to
Who
see.
And Adam Lives and everywhere else.
Everything else, yes.
But there's a bit of a run around with the tramp.
Yeah.
Run around, run around, go! Why am I making that joke?
Because Mike Reed's one of the extras.
Mike Reed, yeah.
I like Pat Gorman.
Yeah, I like the fact that the tramp says he's been to the hospital. Yeah. And he does this really sort of dreadful cough.
He does.
But the tramp is killed, and that's quite nasty, really.
Yes, because you sort of hear him scream, and it's best not to think about it.
And we get our first sight of the war machine, don't we?
Half completed war machine.
Half completed,
yes.
But yeah.
Because they want one completed by the next morning.
Then cut to Hartnell reading the newspaper a few hours later.
With a really beautiful picture of the tramp on the front.
The tramp appears to have publicity photos that he's had taken.
Yeah.
So presumably this tramp has had Facebook and Twitter.
He's a celebrity tramp.
And his own website. Yeah.
Perhaps he's a tramp for a reality television series.
And I just put celebrity tramp.
Yes.
Yeah. But tramp.co.uk, blogspot.co.uk, what the tramp's been getting up to today, But yeah, William Mervyn,
fabulous,
brilliant,
yeah,
and
it's just so. He doesn't even have to really try. He's
not got a lot to do this week.
No, but he does. It's brilliant.
And
yes.
The Time team in Doctor Who magazine have done the War Machines episode 1, which I think is fantastic. We would point out to anybody that's read that we've done a video about Orgas and Gators.
We have, yes.
For William Mervyn, because when we do these Doctor Who videos, we're going to do connected videos
that somebody that's in it has also been in.
Yeah, so Guy Lambert was sort of watched our video last week, said he wanted to watch more Mr. Rose.
But he'd watched it all.
He's seen it all, and I've already pointed him towards Orgas and Gators.
Yes. I mean, I could just watch William Mervyn read the telephone book, and it would be fabulous.
But Polly shows up.
Yes.
So she misses her date with Ben.
She does.
Because she's been told to come here.
No, she was told not to go here. She goes there because she's worried about Professor Brett.
Okay, right.
Because of what's going on.
Yeah.
Because Professor Brett sent her to Charles Summers' house.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So she goes there purely because she's worried about what's going on. Because she's a caring person apparently who likes lame ducks.
Lame ducks. That was written by P.J. Hammond, lame ducks with the ball walker. Yeah. Can't track that down. I'd like to do lame ducks one day.
It's not available.
Hartnell is nobbled on the phone by Wotan.
Yes.
Yeah, that's ooh. And he hasn't got the phone quite right on his ear, has he?
That's why it doesn't work.
Okay. But the Doctor is not affected. And it is a wonderful sort of Hartnell OTT moment. It was something gigantic and,
And he sort of cocks the line up a little bit, doesn't he? So we're not quite sure what he was going for here. But I can understand it. If he'd been doing a bit of filming for the Smugglers and then gone back to do this, I'm not surprised he was confused as to what.
But Jackie Lane basically has her last scene here, doesn't she? So she says about, did you make contact? And that's it. Off she goes to do the rest of her career, to do all sorts of things, basically, and sort of be a voice agent. But also,
which she still is to this day.
Yeah. And this thing about her auditioning for the being sort of considered for the part of Susan. I hadn't realised quite how many people were up for Susan, who we end up seeing later in Doctor Who. It's really strange. But she gets dehypnotised by sort of Hartnell waving his ring at her.
Yeah.
And again, it's like little Doctor Who's ring has whatever
powers it needs.
Yeah. So it is like the sonic screwdriver, really.
Yes, I'm really moaning about the sonic screwdriver these days being used for stuff, but it's like Hartnell's ring.
Because it's used in Volcano for the TARDIS lock. It's used in the Web Planet
for the
to open the door.
Yeah, and for the Derby.
So Hartnell's ring is capable of anything. Basically, it's amazing. So Dodo's off to go
Off to go.
Dodo's to go off to William Mervyn's house in the country with his unseen wife.
His unseen wife. Yes.
I wonder what his wife is like. Can you imagine what?
I'm trying to imagine what William Mervyn's wife is like. I'm just thinking of that woman in Mr. Rosemont that wanted to marry him.
All right, okay.
In that episode.
More boxes with W written on them, and the War Machine is described in the script as being a bit more human. It's about its head and stuff like that.
Yeah. Like it's got a head and a body, but I can see that would be impossible to do to get somebody inside.
A bloke gets shot by the War Machine as a sort of test.
Steam. Or something.
Although it misses.
It does.
And he sort
of gets his feet.
It falls over anyway. He falls over. Mm. And there's more sort of where is Doctor Who stuff. But yeah, then what was it? Ben and Hartnell sort of have a bit of a scene, don't they?
It's Charles's house.
Yeah. Mm. About sort of, as Polly missed a lunch date.
Yeah.
Then we get film of Covent Garden very briefly. Yeah. Episode 2 is the one with the least amount of film work in it. Episodes 3 and 4 have got more. So we'll talk about the film work when it comes to those. Mm-hmm. Have you ever been to Covent Garden?
I think so.
When it was a fruit and veg thing?
Not when it was a fruit and veg thing, no.
You only remember sort of the redevelopment of it? Because it's quite posh now, isn't it? It's all cafes and stuff.
It's cafes. I've walked through it and seen all the street entertainers there.
It's not mimes and statues and things.
There are mimes, but all sorts of different things. Okay. Let's get on with it. I love the fact the door's left open, so you
Ben
can
hear
stuff. Yes, somebody's going to get told off for not shutting the door.
Yeah, so he sort of goes in, and the War Machine's being tested, and not only is it lethal against boxes on Blue Peter, slightly rickety tables are no match for it either, as it sort of gets bashed. And then you get this sequence where it starts to bear down on Ben, and I'd never noticed that some of the time it's machine number 3, and some of the time it's machine number 9. It keeps flipping back between the two. Just when you watch it, look at the number on it.
Yes, and it's like 9, 3, 9, 3, 9.
And then Ben is being loomed upon.
Yes.
And Ben gets a cliffhanger.
He does.
Possibly indicating that Ben might be quite an important character fairly soon. Mm-hmm. I love the fact it's not a cliffhanger for Hartnell or anybody else. No. It is Ben.
It's Ben, yeah.
So Ben is possibly important. Yes. And then the end credits roll, and they still can't spell Kit Pedler's name right.
No. Pedlar.
But lovely little episode, I think. If I were Jackie Lane, I wouldn't necessarily be too happy with it.
No.
But if I was sort of Annika and Michael Craze, I would be.
Yes.
Because it is very clear that the story is heading towards them and heading away from Dodo.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But I mean, as I said, it is difficult because obviously not all of her stuff exists.
Yeah.
But she's given a very poor hand. She's treated very badly by the production team.
Yeah, and unfortunately, everything that happens is not her fault.
No.
And I cannot, if it was me, I would be certainly a bit not too happy about it. Yeah. Do you think it deserves more than 4.7 million viewers? Then
yes,
I certainly do.
I do, because it's a good episode, good solid episode.
I felt it really flew by again.
It did. It's because there are some. A lot of most William Hartnell episodes do zoom by, but there are one or two. Space Museum, mostly, where the pace is a bit more tranquil.
Yeah.
But compared to most other stuff that was being made in the 60s, it is very quick.
But the script rattles along.
Yeah.
And Michael Ferguson as director really does help give it a boost. Mm-hmm. So all in all, it's a shame it was seen by less than 5 million people, because as you do get the feeling that Doctor Who is quietly reinventing itself here, isn't it, with this type of story?
Yeah.
And definitely pushing in a new direction.
Yes.
Much as I love sort of Wiles and Tosh, and perhaps wish that they'd done sort of a few more stories.
I'm not sure William Hartnell would have been that pleased about that.
Hartnell maybe is quite pleased that there's Innes Lloyd and Jerry Davis
did not like John Wiles at all,
here.
Did he? Yes.
And I fully applaud their sort of aim to do new stuff and sort of give the show a kick up the arse again.
Yeah. And it's weird that this story in particular feels like it's going to sound weird, a modern Doctor Who story.
You could rewrite this story.
Yeah. This feels like a story you could do now.
Yeah. And the Bells of St John's is not a million miles away from it, really, is it? It's very interesting. Yeah. That whole thing about sort of the internet and taking people over and stuff like that. So it's amazing that you can write this sort of story in 1966 and you can still do something recognisable with it, 45 years later. And
William Hartnell's Doctor feels like a modern Doctor in this story. He's doing stuff his Doctor has never done before.
Yeah. But Bill doesn't have a huge amount to do.
No, because they're scaling it down slightly.
How much it does fall onto Ben and Polly, even at this point.
Yeah.
And that will
only increase.
That will continue.
Yeah.
But great little episode.
It is.
And looking forward to episode 3.
Yes.
Okay. Right, we'll say ta-ra once I found me thing. And see you again very soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.